You know, I had searched for my birth family when I was in my late 20s, which was 10 years before I got elected. You run, you get elected, and it's very exciting, and there's so much going on. And I have to confess that it wasn't the first thing on my mind because, you know, I had my reunion and I had all my question marks stopped floating around in my life. But I was confronted by a group of people who had not yet had the same opportunity. They all gathered in Springfield. It was a cold day in March. I had filed an open records bill, and they all came down to lobby for the bill. And I walked into the room and I could feel so much pain. There are birth moms who were trying to figure out if the kid that they gave up for adoption ever survived. And you could tell that they've been carrying this around with them for so long. And adoptees who just didn't know anything. I remember crying right in the room in front of everyone because I felt all that pain around me. And, you know, that was the beginning. That was the very beginning of trying to help people get their truth. It took a long time and a lot of fighting and having to tolerate a lot of really, really crazy remarks from people and resistance. I was called an ungrateful bastard. I was called every name in the book. And people would shake their finger at me and tell me I wanted too much. How did we get to this place where there was so much adversity invented by law? What was I going to do to my birth mother that I couldn't see my given name simply because her name was on the same piece of paper? What was the big deal? There were always a lot of people who said to me, oh, if you could only make this law prospective, it would be so much easier to pass. I heard that the first year I sponsored this bill in 1997, and I always in my heart felt that you can't move forward until you correct the errors of the past. You cannot take generations of adult adopted persons and sweep them under a rug or slam the door and shove them in a closet on them. You can't do it. We've been hearing about it from people our whole lives, whether they're in our families or our constituents or even people here at the Capitol, about how much this means to them and how important it is to be able to have the same rights that everybody has. I've had adoptive parents come up to me and say, thank you. I have a biological son and an adopted daughter, and for all these years, I feared one of them having more rights than the other one, and now they both have this right. Society back in the 50s and the 40s and the 60s, where when a woman was pregnant, it was shameful to her. My birth mother and I certainly needed protection from society because in those days children were considered illegitimate. And a woman who is giving birth and having a child without being married was shamed. The laws were very overreaching, and they meant to protect me and they meant to protect her, but no one ever really considered that we really didn't need protection from each other. It was just put upon us. I'm proud of the state for moving forward on this, and I'm very grateful to leadership, to the Senate President, who's been with me on this issue for almost 30 years, and the Speaker and the Governor, who did a great job in signing this bill the same day he was asked. So I'm a very, very lucky person. I have a lot to celebrate tonight and tomorrow.